William Harrington stood at the entrance of St. Catherine's homeless shelter on a bitterly cold January morning in Chicago, his silver-handled cane trembling slightly in his grip. The 78-year-old billionaire had built an empire in commercial real estate, negotiated deals worth billions, and commanded boardrooms across 3 continents. But nothing in his extraordinary life had prepared him for this moment. His driver had received an anonymous tip 3 days earlier, a single sentence that shattered William's world. "Your granddaughter Emily sleeps on a cot at St. Catherine's." For 18 years, he had faithfully wired $2 million to Claire Bennett, Emily's stepmother, believing his only grandchild was living comfortably, attending good schools, wanting for nothing. Margaret, his beloved daughter, had died when Emily was just 6 months old, and Claire had promised to raise the baby as her own. William had trusted her completely. He pushed through the shelter doors, and the smell of industrial disinfectant mixed with desperation hit him immediately. The main room buzzed with quiet activity. Volunteers serving breakfast, children doing homework at folding tables, women folding donated clothes. William's tailored Brioni suit felt obscene in this space. "I'm looking for Emily Harrington," he said to a volunteer, his voice catching. The young woman's eyes widened with recognition. "Oh, Mr. Harrington? Emily's in the education room. She tutors younger kids every morning before her shift at the diner." William followed her pointing finger down a narrow hallway, each step feeling like walking through quicksand. Through a doorway he saw her. Emily sat cross-legged on the floor, helping a little girl sound out words from a tattered picture book. She was 19 now, with Margaret's same copper-colored hair pulled into a practical ponytail, wearing jeans with careful patches at the knees and a sweater that had clearly seen better days. But her eyes, those were Margaret's eyes, full of warmth and patience as she encouraged the struggling reader. "That's it, Sophia. You're doing amazing," Emily said, her smile genuine and unforced. William's throat tightened. This beautiful, kind young woman had been living here while Claire deposited his checks into accounts he'd never questioned. When Emily looked up and saw him, confusion flickered across her face. "Can I help you?" she asked politely, standing. "Emily," William managed. "I'm your grandfather, William Harrington." The color drained from her face. "Grandpa William? But Claire said you. She told me you didn't want anything to do with me after Mom died." The words hit him like a physical blow. "What? No, sweetheart. I've been sending money for your care since you were a baby. I thought Claire was—" He couldn't finish. Emily's hand flew to her mouth. "Money? What money? Claire kicked me out when I turned 18. Said I was on my own now, that she'd done her duty." The shelter director, Mrs. Patterson, appeared beside them, her weathered face concerned. "Mr. Harrington, perhaps we should talk in my office." Within the hour, William had called his attorney and hired James Morrison, the best private investigator in Illinois. "I want to know where every single dollar went," William said, his voice steel hard. "And I want to know why my granddaughter has been living in a shelter while I've been sending millions." James got to work immediately, his team pulling bank records, interviewing neighbors, tracking paper trails that Claire had thought were buried. Emily sat in William's downtown penthouse that evening. He'd insisted she come home with him, staring out at the glittering Chicago skyline. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Claire always had nice things. New cars, designer clothes, vacations to Europe with her own kids. But she told me we couldn't afford my college applications. She said I should be grateful she kept a roof over my head after Mom died." William joined her at the window, this stranger who was his family. "Tell me about your mother. What do you remember?" Emily's eyes grew distant. "Mostly what Claire told me, that Mom was irresponsible, that she left you disappointed, that I should try not to be like her. But sometimes I have these flashes of memory, like sunshine and laughter, someone singing to me. I always thought I made them up." "Your mother was brilliant," William said quietly. Margaret graduated top of her class from Yale, spoke 4 languages, volunteered at children's hospitals every weekend. She was my whole world after your grandmother passed. When she married your father, Claire's brother, I thought she'd found her happiness. But he died in that car accident when you were still in her belly. His voice broke. Losing Margaret to complications after your birth nearly destroyed me. But I had you. You were my second chance at family. Emily turned to him, tears streaming down her face. Why didn't you ever visit? Why didn't you check on me? I tried, William said, pulling out his phone and showing her years of emails to Claire, all politely deflected. Emily's at camp. Emily's on a school trip. Emily's studying for exams. Maybe next month. She always had an excuse. And I believed her because I thought. He stopped, shame flooding through him. I thought money was enough. I thought providing financially meant I was doing right by you. I was a fool. James Morrison called at midnight with preliminary findings. Mr. Harrington, you need to hear this. His voice was grim. Claire Bennett has been systematically embezzling your funds for 18 years. The money went into her personal accounts, luxury purchases, private schools for her own children, a vacation home in Aspen. There's more. She's been claiming Emily as a dependent on fraudulent tax returns, collecting additional benefits while Emily was actually homeless. This isn't just betrayal. This is criminal fraud. William's hand clenched around the phone. How much can we recover? Most of it. Her assets exceed the amount stolen. But Mr. Harrington, there's something else. I interviewed neighbors. They said Claire treated Emily like hired help from the time she could walk. Made her cook and clean for the family while her own children were given everything. One neighbor tried to call child services twice, but Claire was convincing, always had explanations. William looked at Emily, who had fallen asleep on his couch, exhausted from years of survival. This child had been 10 minutes away from him for 18 years, suffering while he wrote checks and felt virtuous. 3 weeks later, James Morrison presented his complete findings in William's private conference room. Emily sat beside her grandfather, her hands folded tightly in her lap, bracing herself for the truth she'd always suspected but never had the power to prove. James spread documents across the mahogany table like evidence at a trial. Claire Bennett received exactly $2,111,000 over 18 years. He began, his finger tracing bank statements. Every wire transfer went into an account she opened specifically for this purpose. From there, the money flowed into her lifestyle, $300,000 on luxury vehicles, $450,000 on private school tuition for her biological children, Madison and Trevor, $200,000 on designer clothing and jewelry, and $180,000 on that Aspen property alone. Emily's breath caught. Madison and Trevor had attended Lakeside Academy, one of Chicago's most elite private schools. While Claire had told Emily there was barely enough for public school supplies, she bought Madison a BMW for her 16th birthday, Emily whispered. I remember because Madison made sure I saw her drive it. I was working double shifts at a fast food restaurant just to buy my own shoes. James continued, his expression darkening. It gets worse. Claire filed fraudulent tax returns claiming Emily as a dependent and qualifying for various credits and benefits. Even after she kicked Emily out at 18. She also accessed a trust fund that Margaret had established before her death, a separate account containing $150,000 meant specifically for Emily's education. Claire drained it completely when Emily was 16, claiming she needed to pay for Emily's medical expenses that never actually occurred. William's face had gone pale. His jaw clenched so tightly that Emily could see the muscles working. Where is she now? He asked quietly, and Emily recognized that tone. It was the voice of a man who'd built empires and crushed competitors, now turned toward someone who'd harmed his family. Still in Winnetka, living in the house you helped her buy, James said. She has no idea we've been investigating. I recommend we confront her with law enforcement present. This level of fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement carries serious prison time. And given Emily's age when much of this occurred, There are child endangerment charges to consider as well. Emily stood abruptly, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. The water was gray and choppy, reflecting the storm inside her. "I want to face her," she said suddenly. "Before the police, before lawyers, before everything. I want her to look at me and explain why." William joined her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Emily, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," she interrupted, turning to face him with a strength that reminded him achingly of Margaret. "For 18 years, I believed I wasn't worth loving, that something was fundamentally wrong with me. I need to hear from her own mouth that it was never about me, that I deserved better." William studied his granddaughter's face, seeing the courage there, the refusal to remain a victim. "Then we'll do it together," he said firmly, "but on our terms with protection in place." James, set it up. 2 days later, they arrived at the sprawling Winnetka colonial that William's money had purchased. Emily's hands shook as she walked up the stone pathway where she'd once pulled weeds every Saturday while Madison hosted pool parties in the back. Claire opened the door, her face arranged in its practiced smile before shock registered. "William? What are you, Emily? What is this?" Her eyes darted between them, already calculating. "We need to talk, Claire," William said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "Inside. Now." They gathered in the living room Emily had cleaned 1,000 times but never been allowed to relax in. Claire perched on the edge of a cream-colored sofa that probably cost more than everything Emily currently owned. 2 police detectives stood quietly near the entrance, and James Morrison sat with his folders of evidence. "I'm going to ask you one question," William began, "and I want the truth. Where did the money go? The $2 million I sent you for Emily's care over 18 years. Claire's face went through a remarkable transformation. Shock, calculation, defiance, and finally, something like bitter satisfaction. "You want the truth, William? Fine. I spent it. Every penny. On my children, on my life. On the things I deserved after being saddled with Margaret's burden." Emily flinched at the word burden, but she didn't speak, letting Claire reveal herself. "Your precious Margaret," Claire spat, years of resentment finally surfacing. "Everyone worshipped her. My own brother was so besotted he could barely see straight. And when he died, when she had the audacity to get pregnant with his child and then die in childbirth, who was left to pick up the pieces? Me. I was the one who took in that baby, not because I wanted to, but because you made it financially impossible to refuse. So you took the money and let a child suffer?" William's voice was dangerously quiet. "I gave her a roof, didn't I? Food? She survived. That's more than many get." Claire's eyes were cold now, all pretense abandoned. "But you want to know the real reason? Because it felt good, William. It felt good to take something from you after you made my brother feel inferior his entire life. He wasn't good enough for your perfect Margaret, was he? You never said it, but we all knew." Emily finally spoke, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. "Did you ever love my mother? Or was it always just hatred?" Claire looked at her directly for the first time. "I didn't hate Margaret. I envied her. Everything came so easily to her: brilliance, beauty, your grandfather's devotion. My brother loved her more than he ever loved his own family. And then she left me with you, this living reminder of everything I couldn't have." She laughed bitterly. "The money was supposed to be compensation for raising you, but why should you have gotten nice things when my own children needed them more? You're not my blood. You were the obligation." The room fell silent except for Claire's harsh breathing. James Morrison handed a folder to the detectives. "Mrs. Bennett, we have documentation of 18 years of embezzlement, fraud, identity theft, and child endangerment. The funds you stole will be recovered, and criminal charges are being filed today." As the detectives read Claire her rights, Emily watched the woman who'd shaped her childhood being handcuffed. She felt no triumph, only a strange, hollow sadness for all the years lost to someone else's bitterness. Outside, Emily breathed in the cold November air. "You know what the worst part is?" she said to William. "I spent years thinking something was wrong with me, that I wasn't lovable enough, wasn't good enough. And it was never about me at all. It was about Mom. About jealousy that had nothing to do with a baby who just needed love." William pulled her close. This granddaughter he was just beginning to know. "You deserved so much better, Emily. And I failed you by not being present, by thinking money could replace showing up. You're here now," Emily said simply. "That's what matters." As they drove away from the house, Emily didn't look back. Some chapters closed not with understanding, but with the simple truth that some people choose bitterness over love, and that choice was never the fault of the child who suffered for it. The legal proceedings moved swiftly once the evidence was presented. Claire Bennett faced multiple felony charges: embezzlement, wire fraud, identity theft, filing false tax returns, and child endangerment. Her attorney tried to negotiate, but James Morrison's documentation was airtight. Every fraudulent transaction, every forged signature, every lie told to keep Emily isolated from her grandfather. All of it laid bare in depositions that would eventually lead to a plea agreement. Claire received a 6-year prison sentence and was ordered to repay every cent stolen, plus damages. Her assets were liquidated: the Aspen vacation home, the luxury vehicles, even the Winnetka house William had helped purchase. The recovered funds, along with substantial additional compensation from William's own accounts, were placed into an irrevocable trust for Emily, managed by independent trustees to ensure her financial security for life. But for Emily, the money had never been the point. On a crisp morning in late August, William stood with Emily on the campus of Northwestern University in Evanston, just north of Chicago. She'd been accepted into their School of Social Work, her application essay about transforming personal pain into purpose moving the admissions committee to tears. "Are you sure about this path?" William asked, though he already knew the answer. He'd offered to support whatever dreams Emily harbored: medical school, law school, business school, anything she wanted. Emily adjusted the backpack on her shoulders, looking at the limestone buildings and students hurrying to classes. "I'm sure, Grandpa. I spent a year at St. Catherine's watching people who society forgot, people who just needed someone to see them. Mrs. Patterson told me I had a gift for helping others find their footing. I want to develop that gift professionally. I want to work with youth aging out of foster care, with families navigating homelessness, with kids who feel invisible like I did." William's eyes glistened with pride. "Your mother would be so proud of the woman you've become. Margaret always believed education was about service, about using privilege and opportunity to lift others." They'd spent the past months rebuilding what Claire had stolen. Not money, but family. William had shown Emily photo albums from Margaret's childhood, videos of her violin recitals and debate competitions, letters she'd written home from college full of wit and warmth. Emily discovered that her mother had been fluent in Spanish and French, had volunteered at children's hospitals every weekend, and had planned to become a pediatrician specializing in underserved communities. "She sounds amazing," Emily had whispered, tracing her mother's face in photographs. "She was," William confirmed. "And you're so much like her, Emily. That same compassion, that same determination to make the world gentler for others." They'd also reconnected with extended family, Margaret's cousins, William's sister Eleanor, relatives who'd been told by Claire that Emily didn't want contact with them. The lies had been extensive, a web designed to isolate Emily completely. At a family reunion in September, Aunt Eleanor had embraced Emily fiercely. "We missed so much time with you, sweetheart. But we're here now, and we're not going anywhere." Emily's freshman year brought challenges she'd expected and some she hadn't. Academically, she excelled, her experiences giving her insights her classmates could only read about in textbooks. But socially, she sometimes struggled to relate to peers who'd never questioned where their next meal would come from or whether they'd have a safe place to sleep. "It's like we're speaking different languages sometimes," she confided to William over Sunday brunch. A new tradition they'd established. They complain about their parents being too involved, too protective. And I'm sitting there thinking about kids at the shelter who'd give anything for parents who cared too much instead of not at all. William set down his coffee, considering his words carefully. You've lived experiences most people your age can't imagine, Emily. That perspective is valuable, but it can also be isolating. You don't have to choose between your past and your future. They're both part of who you are. That conversation sparked an idea that would become Emily's most significant achievement. Working with Mrs. Patterson at St. Catherine's Shelter and the financial support from her trust, Emily established the Margaret Harrington Second Chance Scholarship. The program would provide full tuition scholarships, along with housing stipends and mentorship support, to young women experiencing homelessness or aging out of foster care who wanted to pursue higher education. Education was my mother's passion, Emily explained at the scholarship's launch event in November, speaking to a room full of donors, shelter directors, and social workers. And it became my lifeline. When I was sleeping on a cot at St. Catherine's, I'd go to the public library and read everything I could find. Books were my escape, but education became my pathway to transformation. This scholarship honors my mother's memory by giving other young women the same chance I've been given. Not just financial support, but the message that they matter, that their dreams are valid, that someone sees their potential. The first recipient of the Margaret Harrington Scholarship was Sophia, the little girl Emily had tutored in the shelter's education room the morning William found her. Sophia was 14 now, brilliant in mathematics but convinced college was impossible for someone like her. "You're like me," Sophia had told Emily shyly when they'd met to discuss the scholarship. "You got out. You made it. Maybe I can too." Emily had held the girl's hands, seeing her younger self reflected in Sophia's cautious hope. "You absolutely can," Emily promised. "And you won't be doing it alone. I'll be here, walking with you every step." By the scholarship's first anniversary, 5 young women were enrolled in Chicago area colleges, each one matched with a mentor, each one carrying the torch of second chances forward. William had never been prouder of anything he'd funded. "This is legacy," he told Emily as they reviewed the scholarship's first annual report. "Not the buildings with my name on them, not the business deals, this. Changing lives, creating ripples that will extend far beyond us." On a cold December afternoon, exactly 1 year after William had walked into St. Catherine's Shelter, he and Emily stood together at Graceland Cemetery, at Margaret's grave. Emily placed fresh white roses on the headstone, her fingers tracing her mother's name. "Hi, Mom," she said softly. "I'm sorry it took me so long to visit. Claire told me you wouldn't have wanted me here, that I reminded you of losing Dad and that's why you—" Her voice broke, and William squeezed her shoulder gently. "But Grandpa told me the truth, that you fought so hard to bring me into the world, that your last words were asking him to tell me you loved me, that you'd chosen my name, Emily Grace, because you wanted me to have an elegant life full of grace." The wind rustled through the bare trees, and Emily smiled through her tears. "I'm studying social work at Northwestern. I'm helping kids like me find their way. I have a family now, Grandpa and Aunt Eleanor and cousins I didn't know existed. I'm safe, Mom. I'm loved. And I'm going to spend my life making sure other kids know they're worth fighting for, the way you fought for me." William added his own flowers to Margaret's grave, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm sorry I failed you, Margaret. I should have been there for Emily, should have checked, should have shown up instead of just sending money. But I promise you, I'm here now, and I'll spend whatever time I have left making sure she knows how deeply she's loved, how proud we are of her." As they walked back to the car, Emily slipped her hand into William's. "Grandpa, can I tell you something? The money was never what mattered. Not really. What mattered was you believing I was worth searching for, worth fighting for. What mattered was you seeing me, not as a burden or an obligation, but as your granddaughter, as part of our family. That's what changed everything." William stopped walking, pulling Emily into a tight embrace. "You were always worth it, sweetheart. Always. And every day I get to spend with you is a gift I don't deserve but will treasure forever." That evening, back at William's penthouse overlooking the Chicago skyline, Emily studied for her finals while William worked on expanding the scholarship funds' reach to other cities. They existed in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from genuine connection. Emily looked up from her textbooks and watched her grandfather. This man who'd given her not just financial security but something far more valuable, the chance to heal, to grow, to become the person her mother had hoped she'd be. "Thank you," she said suddenly. William glanced up, puzzled. "For what, Emily?" "For not giving up on me, for finding me, for giving me the chance to find myself." William smiled, the same warm smile Margaret had inherited and Emily now carried forward. "That's what family does, sweetheart. We find each other, we hold each other up, and we remind each other that we're never truly alone. That's the legacy worth leaving. Not money or buildings, but love that persists even when the world tries to break it." Emily's story reminds us that being seen, truly seen, matters more than any material wealth. When someone believes in your worth, when they choose to show up and fight for you, transformation becomes possible. Second chances aren't just about opportunities. They're about love that refuses to give up. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear that they matter, that their dreams are valid, that it's never too late to come home to yourself. Like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments. What's one second chance you're grateful for? Your story matters too.